So right now we'll get back to the draft. Rob Rang, CBS Sports Draft expert, is with us here on Tiki and Tierney. Rob, how you been, buddy? What's happening?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, you got it. So, I asked Tiki to start the show what really jumped out to him, whether it's a singular move or a team's complete draft. What's your, I mean, we want to hit a lot of stuff here, Rob, but what's your strongest takeaway from this past draft?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just all the myriad storylines. I mean, whether it be Myles Jack slipping and ultimately Jalen Smith jumping ahead of him, the Laramie Tunsil's draft stock literally going up in smoke, the top two quarterbacks going 1-2 off the board as expected, but still obviously the game's most important position, and in the Cleveland Browns and all the talk about Sashi Brown and his analytics. And the fact they drafted a lot of players that have a great deal of production at the collegiate level, but the scouts just don't see the traits with these players that may lead to success. I mean, there's a lot of storylines out there, guys, but I think those are the biggest ones.
You know, when you talk about the Cleveland Browns, it's interesting. They take Cody Kessler from Southern California, and, yeah, we know there's a connection with the head coach, but how do analytics – and this is, I guess it's a bigger question. Analytics is starting to creep into the NFL, kind of like it's been dominating Major League Baseball. How do you see that playing out in the long run?
Well, I just personally have always had questions about Cody Kessler's arm strength. And I think if you're going to plug him into on the First Energy Field in Cleveland, Ohio, where the weather obviously is going to turn, you're going to have to play on the road in Cincinnati, in Pittsburgh, in Baltimore. Again, outdoor stadiums. You know, if eventually Cleveland plays a game in November or December or January that matters, then I think that arm strength is going to be even more of an issue. So I have no question about Cody Kessler's mind. I have no question about his fit in a West Coast offense. But at the same time, I do have concerns about whether or not he has the physical ability to be able to pull off what Hugh Jackson's going to ask him to do in Cleveland.
Rob, you've been doing this for a while, and I'm sure you keep a lot of your notes, you keep files, a database. Take us back a few years ago as you were beginning to project and scout Hackenberg and the difference from with Billy O'Brien to Coach Franklin. And, just say if O'Brien stayed for a couple of more years, do you think it would have been radically different, or is this all on Hackenberg?
No, I think that it could have been radically different. I'm a big believer in Bill O'Brien. I thought the Houston Texans actually had one of the great drafts this year.
Yep.
And so I do, again, give a lot of credit to Bill O'Brien, but I also give a lot of credit to some of the other talent that Christian Hackenberg had around him. I mean, the offensive tackle, whose name is escaping me at the moment, wound up being a second-round selection by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a year ago. Of course, he was thrown to Allen Robinson, who's now a star in Jacksonville Jaguars. And so he certainly had some talent around him. When you have your left tackle and your wide receiver both wind up going early in the NFL draft, both these players being second-round picks, that certainly aided his transition as a true freshman, and he lost both of those players. Donald Smith was the left tackle I was referring to earlier, now starting left tackle with the Bucs.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what I did not see, guys, is the improvement from Christian Hackenberg. He was the same player as a junior that he was as a freshman. You still see the big arm. You still see the 6'4", 230-pound frame. You still see the willingness to take a hit, the toughness, all of those things. You just didn't see the progression as a passer. He still has a tendency to throw off of his back foot, to forecast where he's going to throw the ball because he stares down his wide receiver. We just thought that we would see a natural progression of skills by the end of his third season being a starter. And instead, we saw essentially a stagnation of those skills.
That's a fair analysis. Rob Rang, CBS Sports Draft expert, Tiki and Tierney. Good Monday morning to you.
Rob, the Jacksonville Jaguars, obviously, talking about Allen Robinson, they have a ton of offensive talent. Blake Bortles, everything seems to be going for them. They went heavy defense, and they went after Myles Jack in the second round. And what the GM said I thought was smart. Like, you can't make strides unless you take some risk. How big of a risk is this with Myles Jack?
Well, frankly, I think it would have been a bigger risk if Jacksonville would have passed up on him in the second round again. And instead, of course, Gettleman or Caldwell, and the head coach, Dan Quinn, decided to jump up. And I think that it's a perfect fit for this club. They're just, they're looking for a dynamic athlete. Excuse me, with what Gus Bradley, I'm sorry, I mentioned Dan Quinn, both former Seahawks defensive coordinators.
Yeah.
Gus Bradley's defense in Jacksonville, they're looking for athleticism, just like what they had in Seattle. And Myles Jack is arguably the elite athlete in this draft class. And Gus Bradley, for as good as the talent, as much talent as Jacksonville has brought into that team, that it's not turning into wins. I mean, they were selecting the top 5 for the 3rd consecutive year.
Yeah.
So they have to win now. And Myles Jack gives them that opportunity, especially when you complement him with the first-round selection, quarterback Jalen Ramsey, a perfect fit in Jacksonville's scheme. Myles Jack, because of his speed, because of his instincts, a perfect fit in Gus Bradley's scheme as well. I'm telling you right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to compete for the AFC South division, and it's going to be largely based off of the improvements that they made in the offseason this year, as well as that incredibly talented offense that you mentioned just a moment ago.
Oh, there's no doubt. We totally agree. And I would say right now, for me, they're the favorite to win. I would even take it that far, but plenty of time to hit that. Watching Mike Mayock, I thought this was interesting. Mayock's reaction to the Aguayo trade as they moved up to get a kicker in round 2. We know he's really good. He's phenomenal, actually. He's kind of like a Jenikowski when he's righty. He seems like he's that kind of player, maybe even more accurate. But Mayock had an interesting take. He said, listen, I can't give you a scouting report. It's such a technical specialty. I have no idea. And I don't know if you've taken that same approach, but just the notion of moving up to get a kicker in round 2, everybody that you've spoken to, plus what you think, do you laud this or do you rip this?
I just have a hard time loving any time they're going to trade up, give up a 3rd and a 4th round pick for a kicker. Now, Robert Aguayo is one of the great kickers I've ever seen.
Yep.
And I have been scouting this and going to the Senior Bowl and all those things since 2001. And just to put that in perspective, that was the year LaDainian Tomlinson was in Mobile, Alabama, before he obviously had his Hall of Fame career with the Chargers. Robert Aguayo has never missed a kick inside of 40 yards.
Yeah.
And in today's NFL, that's even more important because, of course, they drop back point after touchdown. So there's no question that he's a talent. There's no question that he has the ability to impact the game for the Buccaneers team that was arguably the worst in all of the NFL last year in kicking field goals. So I certainly understand the need. It's just quite the price to pay for a club that has struggled to get to the playoffs themselves. So I do understand why the general manager, Jason Licht, pulled the trigger on this deal. I think that it absolutely is a big fit for them. I hate to say that I don't love or hate the deal, but I just think it's a heck of a price to pay for. It would be the same thing, like I think that it's a heck of a price the Houston Texans invested all that money in the quarterback Brock Osweiler, but at the same time, I see the talent. I see why you do it. Mm-hmm. It's just I'm happy someone else is writing that check rather than me.
Yeah. I know Tiki has something else for you, but just so fans who don't really know Aguayo, and I know that you said that he's never missed a kick inside of 40, and you're right. In 3 years, he was 27 out of 27 from 20 to 29, and then he was 17 for 17 from 30 to 39. Now, he's not kicking it in Nebraska or at the Big House or Michigan State. Weather's usually good, but it does rain a lot there, so you got to factor that in as well.
Yeah,
just a little perspective.
Yeah, you definitely do. But 3rd and 4th, I didn't even realize it was. That's how much they gave up. It was their 2nd round pick. Let's move to the Giants real quick. And Jerry Reese, who's been under a lot of pressure to find the right draft. How do you think he did? Kid Sterling Shepard could be the perfect complement to Odell Beckham Jr., especially if Victor Cruz doesn't return to form. And then they get Paul Perkins, a running back out of UCLA, late. I mean, they did a lot offensively.
Is this the kid they said is like a poor you?
Yeah, exactly. But they did a lot offensively, it seems. But defense seemed to be where they needed a lot of their assets. And I know a lot of people didn't love Eli Apple.
Well, I like Eli Apple. I just thought it was a little bit rich for where he was selected. I think the Giants have some talented corner, but, there's a lot of scouts out there who thought that Eli Apple was going to wind up being the best corner from this draft class. Now, I personally think that's going to be Jalen Ramsey, and that's why he went 5 spots earlier to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But, I have no problem with Eli Apple. I think he's a good football player. He's long. He's physical. He fits in with what you need when you're going to be competing against wide receivers like Dez Bryant. And now the rookie Josh Doctson is going to be in Washington. Physical, tall wide receivers. Eli Apple has that length, has the physicality and the tenacity that you're looking for. He's also a redshirt sophomore, and he was surrounded by a lot of talent at Ohio State. So that's why I was a little bit lukewarm on that selection. But Sterling Shepard, guys, I mean, that's an excellent selection. He reminds me so much of Tyler Lockett, who of course wound up being a Pro Bowler for the Seahawks a year ago as a rookie. Just a incredibly athletic slot receiver, great quickness, great straight line speed, and not a lot of people give him enough credit for his hands and his toughness. And so, obviously, New York needed a complementary threat for Odell Beckham Jr. We didn't know what you're going to get with Victor Cruz. You know that it's a huge risk to gamble on Victor Cruz coming back and being 100%. So to take Sterling Shepard there, as you mentioned, Tiki, getting Paul Perkins a couple of picks there, and he does in some ways remind me of your game because of his versatility. He's a slashing runner with good quickness, vision, speed to the outside. He has terrific hands out of the backfield. The only question about Paul Perkins was the fact that in Noah Mazzoni's offense while at UCLA, it essentially was a spread attack. And so how is he going to be able to handle the closer quarters of the NFL? The Giants aren't going to ask him to be their franchise back. They're going to kind of do that thunder and lightning approach, and that's why I think that it makes sense.
Rob, good spot, man. A lot of hard work over the past couple of months. Paid off. I think you did a nice job for us. Talk to you soon, pal. That's Rob.